Hello, beautiful people. My name is Niera, and I talk about all things great for the mind, body, and soul. If you are new here, welcome. If you are returning, welcome back. I am happy to have you. Today, I am talking about something that impacts all of us, whether we like to acknowledge it or not, grief. And this topic is really heavy on my heart around this season, and just for a lot of people that I know. So I was like, let me make a video about it. I want to talk about what grief is and how complex it really is, some myths that go along with grief, and then ways that we can kind of redefine it. So, let's start with the definition. Grief is actually the realization that time actually doesn't heal all wounds. In fact, it just teaches you how to live with them. My theory is that grief is actually proof of love. And if you know anything about love, you know that it never dies. It lives in our hearts and our memories. Um, and that is the reason why it continues to live on forever. Okay, myth number one, you have to be strong. Now, how many times have you heard this? This triggers me so much because um I just want women, especially black women, to give themselves permission to feel. Okay? Strength is not about suppressing emotions. In fact, strength is about giving yourself permission to feel those emotions, to cry, to rest, to think about the joy, all of that, giving yourself permission to be vulnerable, to be able to feel, is how you properly grieve. So this myth of you have to be strong is doing absolutely nothing but making us sick. Okay? Myth number two, grief has an expiration date. That is simply a myth. If you are someone who has ever grieved or gone through the grieving process, you know that it is a lifelong journey. Okay. It is a journey. There are some days where you feel okay, some days where you don't. Some days where you're like, I'm somewhere in the middle. There's something that smells like someone that sends you, spiraling. Maybe you see an old photo that brings you happiness or joy as you grieve. Um, Also, I want to note that grieving isn't just about a death of someone. It can be a loss of anything. It can be your old life that you had. It could be a job. um it doesn't have to be necessarily a death. Okay, so just want to clarify that. But yes, myth number two about grief having an expiration date is simply a myth, because we know through the journey itself that it just takes a long time. It really does. It's lifelong. And again, you just learn how to manage and cope just a little bit better as you go through the journey. Myth number three, grief only looks like sadness. Grief does not only look like sadness, you all. You do not have to be balled up in a corner to be properly grieving. For some people, they're super emotional and they will cry and they will cry it out. That is grief. But grief is also anger, numbness, exhaustion. That's also what grief can look like. It doesn't just look like sadness. So don't think anything is necessarily wrong with you because you're not grieving like the next person. You're not, crying in a corner. It could even look like laughter sometime, denial. That's the complexity of grief. So I encourage you to feel it and don't think anything's wrong with you because you're not feeling what some other people are feeling at that moment. Okay. Now, obviously, I encourage you during the grieving process to be safe and legal and healthy. Don't do anything that's unhealthy or unsafe or illegal. But feel what you feel, and that's how you really grieve. Okay, now that we've talked about some myths, let's talk about how to kind of navigate grief a bit more healthily, um, to make sure that we are grieving properly. The first thing I want to talk about is the fact that we really need to give ourselves grace during this process of grieving. Some days it'll feel like you're on top of the world and you're okay. Other days you will feel like you went 10 steps, 20 steps, 100 steps back. And that is what grief is and how complex it is. Some days you can be more functioning than others. You just never know when it may hit you. And again, that's how complex grief is. So I really encourage you to give yourself grace. rest, and feel what you are feeling. Okay. And I know grace is a term that we just throw around so much, but think about how much grace you extend to others and the chances you give them time and time again. That is the amount of grace that you need to be giving yourself. I call it unlimited grace. You need to be giving yourself unlimited and unconditional grace, okay? During this process because you need it. You're not crazy. It's nothing severely wrong because you are feeling the way you're feeling. This person or this thing meant a lot to you. So it makes a lot of sense why you are feeling the way you're feeling. Again, my whole thing is grief is not about moving on, it is about moving with. How are we going to navigate this new life? With them no longer in it or that thing no longer in it. That's just the reality of what it is when we're navigating grief. The second thing I want to talk about is how important it is to lean on your village or lean on some sort of community of support. Now, if you are someone who just doesn't have a lot of ties with your family, or you don't have a lot of friends, or just a large support system, listen, you can join support groups. There are groups out here for everything, okay? Listen, there is a support group probably for I fracture my pinky toe. Okay. Like you can get on Facebook or any platforms and really find almost any group out there that aligns with you. So I really encourage you to find some sort of support system. It really, really does make all the difference. You need someone that is gonna support you during this process, and also just help get you out the house and around and addressing some of that head on as well. So definitely lean on a village of some sort for yourself. Okay. The third thing I want to talk about is finding moments of joy. And what I mean by this is grief is so complex, but the reality is, two things can exist with grief. You can absolutely feel sadness, but you can also feel moments of joy at the same time. They can coexist at the same time. So I encourage you when you're feeling really, really down, think about moments of joy that you had during that process with the person or with the thing. It could be your old life, right? Moments of joy during that just put you in a more reflective state. But I just really want you all to know that grief can be sadness, but it can also be moments of joy. Okay. Number four, you might not want to hear, but I'm still going to say it anyway. Seek professional help if you need it. Okay. Sometimes your village isn't enough, and what you are currently doing just may not be enough. And that's okay. The reality is there are professionals out here, and as a former therapist and current licensed social worker, I work with a lot of vulnerable populations in terms of helping them navigate grief, abuse, neglect, abandonment of some sort. And I always encourage people to seek those services. There are professionals out here who are more than willing to help you navigate that journey of grief because it is a long one. And it is one where if you try to handle it by yourself, it may absolutely become overwhelming. Okay. So definitely seek professional help. Um, and there are free resources out here. There are a lot of therapists who have like sliding scales or some sort of discounted services. So make sure that you are, talking to your insurance companies or looking at the social services in your community to see and seek out those services. Okay. There's no shame in going to therapy, y'all. It is no shame in it. Grieve properly. Well, I really hope this video spoke to someone. Even just one person is enough for me. It is a topic I'm super passionate about, mental health in general and overall wellness. But as we wrap up, I really, really just want to say that grief takes time, okay? And it, again, is such a long journey ahead. Um, But the beauty of grief is that, like I said, it is proof of love, and love never ever dies. Okay. Sometimes I hear so often, oh, I just want to get back to who I was, when so and so was here. The reality is, you will never get back to that version of yourself because they're not here. However, you can navigate this new version of yourself because they're not here, or that thing is not here. And I know that sounds so harsh to really register, but that literally is the reality. Who you were when they were here is completely different than who you are now with them no longer here in the physical presence, okay? You are navigating this life a little differently, but that doesn't mean that your life is over. Again, I can't stress enough that grief is not moving on, it's moving with, okay? So, if this video spoke to you, let me know in the comments. Again, don't forget to like, um, comment, and subscribe. And I look forward to having more transparent conversations like this with you all in the near future. So, thanks for watching.